Hi, everyone. Welcome to Proudly Jewish, Conversations on Israel and Jewish Identity. I'm Rabbi Eyal Bitton. Wow, what a weekend this has been. I'm talking about Iran. We are living through something historic, truly historic. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the man who for decades led an oppressive regime dedicated to seeking the destruction of the Jewish state, to seeking the destruction of Israel, is dead following a coordinated airstrike by the United States and Israel. His compound was destroyed. Senior regime figures have been killed. Iran has retaliated against several of its Arab neighbors, as well as Israel. The region is tense. The world is watching. And today, I want to not discuss things as a military analyst. That's not what I do. If you want great military analysis, go to Yair Lapin or John Spencer. But today, I want to speak about this through the lens of Jewish identity and Jewish pride, Jewish peoplehood, what this means for the Jewish people. What's unfolding here isn't just geopolitical. It has ramifications on Jewish peoplehood. It is existential. This entire war, every war Israel has fought since 1948 has been existential. The October 7th massacre was aimed at Israel's existence. The ensuing campaign of Free Palestine around the world is aimed at Israel's existence. So what's unfolding in Iran is existential. For over 4 decades, the Islamic Republic of Iran defined itself around a central obsession, the destruction of the Jewish state, the destruction of Israel. It's not criticism, it's not politics, it's not policy disagreement, not even territorial dispute. It doesn't share a border, right? But even on behalf of someone else, that's not what it's about. It's about erasure, total erasure of the Jewish state. Funding Hezbollah. This is what they did. Funding Hezbollah, arming Hamas, training militias, pursuing nuclear capability, chanting death to Israel as state doctrine. October 7th did not emerge out of nowhere. October 7th was enabled by that regime, by the Iranian regime. The goal of October 7th was not protest. It was not negotiation. It was not in order to apply pressure. It was annihilation. And let's say clearly what that means. The destruction of Israel, the destruction of the Jewish state, would mean the genocide of the Jewish people. Let me say that again. The destruction of the Jewish state would mean the genocide of over half the world's Jewish population. That's over 7 million Jews. Genocide and mass expulsion, ethnic cleansing on a huge scale. It would mean the end of Jewish sovereignty. And we have had 2,000 years of experience of knowing what that looks like. It would mean returning Jews to permanent exile. We know what that's like. We have 2,000 years of experience. It's not good. For 2,000 years, we were a diasporic people without power, without protection, dependent on the protection of others, dependent on the tolerance of others. When that tolerance would disappear, we would have to be moved by force or willingly for our own survival. Now, Israel ended that condition in 1948. So when regimes call for the destruction of the Jewish state, they're not making abstract political statements. They're threatening Jewish survival. It has ramifications on Jewish survival. Hamas and its backers believed October 7th would ignite a regional explosion. The calculation was attack Israel brutally, force a massive war, drag Hezbollah into the war, trigger Iran, inflame the Arab street, and collapse normalization, which was happening with the Abraham Accords in the region, isolate Israel, break it psychologically and diplomatically. There's been some success in all that. But instead of all that unfolding the way it was initially planned, something else may now be unfolding. Israel has not collapsed. The Abraham Accords have not collapsed. This is huge. The Arab countries in the region did not ultimately side with Hamas. They maintained their connection with Israel, and more than that, this commitment to a different future. That's what the Abraham Accords are about. Saudi Arabia did not stop their talks with Israel. That avenue is still open. Iran's proxy network, Hezbollah, the Houthis, has been severely weakened. And now the leader of the regime itself, the leader of Iran, is gone. History sometimes turns on miscalculations. October 7th may have been one of the greatest strategic miscalculations in modern Middle Eastern history. That's amazing. Now, in an earlier episode of Proudly Jewish, I hosted members of a group called Sharaka. This is a group dedicated to building a warm peace between Israel and its neighbors, its Arab partners. In that episode, one idea stood out powerfully. Listen.
I've been, mulling kind of, I guess, the book that I want to write next, and 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 it's going to be about the builders and the destroyers, and that's really, how Ahmed described it is there's a camp that is intent on building the Middle East and creating mutual prosperity, and there's a camp led by Iran, and for sure the October 7th attack was guided by Iran, was funded by Iran, was trained by Iran. And in large part, it's to spark a war. It's to spark a war that is so disastrous that it'll torpedo the peace talks. It'll torpedo the Abraham Accords. They wanted to get Israeli Arabs out on the streets, like happened 2 years ago, and create this movement around the world that you're seeing against Israel, against the West, against anybody that's seeking prosperity and stability in the region, because the Islamist camp in the region, of which Hamas is a part of, and which Iran is today the de facto leader of it, um, thrives on chaos and has this delusional vision of tearing down the entire system and rebuilding the caliphate.
Now let's talk about what Dan Pfefferman just said. That framing matters. There are builders in the Middle East, and there are destroyers. The destroyer camp thrives on chaos, on grievance, on permanent war. The builder camp speaks a different language: prosperity, partnership, pragmatism, life. Building is much harder than destroying. But this is a path that some people in the Middle East have chosen. Some countries have chosen. October 7th was an attempt by the destroyers to derail the builders. Instead, what we're seeing today may well be the builders derailing the destroyers themselves. Iran is not just one thing. It's not monolithic. There is Iran, the regime and its supporters, and Iran, the people. The Iranian people are welcoming these events, this attack by Israel and the US. They're welcoming it. They're dancing and celebrating on the streets of Iran and around the world. Listen.
We know they're celebrating. What's the feeling?
It's an incredible dissonance that they had to choose war over a regime, but they were willing to do it. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you, America. It's not death to America after they killed the leader. The Americans and the Israelis did it. It's not death to Israel and death to America. It's thank you. It's a new day dawning, but very early days. Very, very early days. So we'll have to see what comes. But it's the Iranian people that have been telling me over and over and over again, we want this.
There is a sense of relief. There's a sense of relief. For years, Iranians have protested. Women have dared to remove their hijabs. These are heroic, courageous women who risked everything. They risked even their own lives standing up to the rigid Islamic regime and their morality police. The videos and accounts are gruesome and frightening. So women have done that. Students have chanted for freedom. Dissidents have been jailed and killed. When we see reports of Iranians celebrating in the streets at news of Khamenei's death, we need to pay close attention. We need to listen to them. For Iranians, this isn't about war. This is about a people longing for freedom, for liberation, for a life of normalcy, for a life free of the repressive and oppressive Islamic regime of Iran. Now, if this moment leads to internal transformation in Iran, if Iran shifts from exporting jihad to becoming a nation that seeks dignity and normalcy, the regional map changes profoundly. Imagine Iran not funding Hezbollah. Imagine Iran not funding Hamas. Imagine Iran not providing weapons and instructions to the Houthis. Imagine an Iran not calling for the destruction of the Jewish state. Imagine an Iran focused inward on rebuilding its own society. That would not merely stabilize Israel, it would transform the Middle East. It would transform the Middle East. In that same Sharaka episode, Ahmed spoke about normalization not stopping, even after October 7th. Let's listen.
So we move forward. And as I said earlier, the Saudi-Israeli talks never stopped. Maybe slowed down just a little bit, but it never stopped. The day after, that's a big thing to think about. Well, from my own personal opinion, before talking about the day after, let's talk about today, where we have to ensure that an operation of that size cannot happen again. That will ensure this process to be a valid one. October 7th is a bad thing to happen, but it has been a big testimony, a big test to the Abraham Accords.
Yeah.
Our agreements are still binding. We stand together. The Gulf states proven that they are good friends, good allies, in their own ways. Maybe not understandable to the Israelis 100%, but we stood by it. The alliance is getting bigger and bigger. We are standing with our friends. We're committed to it, and just like the Saudi Foreign Ministry a month ago said, that the talks never stopped. We're going forward with it. We're finding our way, but it is happening. It's a matter of time.
This is remarkable. October 7th was meant to derail Saudi normalization with Israel. Instead, conversations continued. Why? Because many in the region understand something fundamental. Israel is not temporary. It's permanent, and it's strong. This is something that the players in the Middle East understand, while so many, more and more, right here in the West, don't. So many more in the West think it is an act of restorative justice to see the destruction of the Jewish state. But where it counts, in the Middle East, these avenues of discourse, of relations between countries, have continued unabated because they understand that Israel is there to stay. Israel is strong. Now, the pragmatic Sunni world increasingly sees partnership with Israel as beneficial economically, technologically, strategically. If Iran's regime weakens further, the builder camp grows stronger. And for Jews, that means something enormous. When thinking about what I might say in today's episode of Proudly Jewish, I considered looking at those voices who see themselves as voices for social justice, for morality, who have been championing the so-called Palestinian cause on the grounds that it is just and moral to do so. These voices were utterly silent when the Iranian regime mowed down 30 to 40,000 of their own civilians. 30 to 40,000 in the most brutal ways, including sexual assaults, heinous acts. These are their own people. And those voices, claiming to be voices of social justice and morality, were silent. Were silent. They're not silent anymore, not after this weekend. Now they object to Iran being taken down, the regime being taken down. It's shocking. It's not really shocking. It's actually to be expected, but it is hypocritical. And I'd say morally inconsistent, to be nice. The Iranian people have been longing to be free. And this is an opportunity for them. In the end, I decided, even though I just spoke about it, in the end, I decided not to make the entire episode about that, about those voices, because I think that those voices don't really matter in the end. We need to see who they are. We need to know what's being said, what's being spread on our streets and in our academies of learning and in our culture, but they don't matter in the end because the region is under transformation, because the Iranian people stand to be free. The normalization that was underway before October 7th may yet be underway. And beyond that, something that no one would have expected, something that no one would have expected before October 7th. Iran may be part of that vision of that transformed and more peaceful Middle East. And for the Jewish people, that possibility carries enormous weight. For much of Jewish history, survival depended on being invisible, on being accommodated and tolerated. We survived, right? But we did not control our own fate. Israel changed that. As of 1948, that situation of the survival of the Jewish people being dependent on the tolerance of others has changed. Israel gave Jews agency. It gave Jews protection. It gave Jews self-determination. That is not just nationalism, it's the restoration of our civilization from 2,000 years ago. When global movements chant for Israel's destruction, whether in Tehran or in Western cities, they're not critiquing policy. Anti-Zionists claim that that's what they're doing, but when they're calling for Israel's destruction, that's not what's going on. Certainly not in Tehran. They're advocating for a return to Jewish weakness. They are advocating for a return to Jewish vulnerability. And that's why this moment matters. In many ways, it matters. This is one of the ways in which it matters, and it matters to us as Jews in this way. If the most powerful state actor seeking Israel's destruction is weakened to the point where it can't destroy Israel, it strengthens Jewish permanence. It strengthens Jewish dignity, Jewish pride. It strengthens the idea that the Jewish people are not guests in history. We are home. Now, we must be careful. You must be cautious. Power vacuums can be very dangerous. We can see more hardliners emerge. Chaos can ensue. This may not necessarily be a perfect movie ending, but it might. It might. We hope so, but it may not be. And yet we find ourselves in a moment of transformation. That there's no doubt of. And the question is, will the region choose building over destroying? Will Iran's people be able to claim their future? Will normalization expand through the region? Will the Middle East finally move beyond permanent war? For Jews, for us, this is not about simply victory. It's about survival. It's about pride. It's about the restoration of a people to its homeland. October 7th was meant to erase that. That's what Sinwar wanted to accomplish. The erasure of Israel. That's what Iran wanted to accomplish. Instead, it may have accelerated the very forces that entrench Israel's permanence. We may be witnessing the beginning of a Middle East that lives with Israel, not against it. Now, that's not guaranteed, but it is possible. And for people who waited 2,000 years to return home, anything is possible. And seeing a glimmer of possibility is seeing hope. I'm Rabbi Eyal Bitton. This is Proudly Jewish. And in moments like this, we remember we're not a temporary people. We are a people with a homeland. And that homeland, Israel, endures. Am Yisrael Chaim.